There we go.
All right.
Okay.
My name's Brenda, and with me is Stacy. This is
Yep.
our final for Amazing Grace, right?
Yes.
And we just talk about the questions, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So, so you just want? Do we just want to go down the list then?
Yeah, let's do that. Sounds
Okay.
good.
So for the first question, I I don't know if I necessarily could identify a specific doctrine, just that um, Wilberforce had a religious awakening, and when he was questioned about it by his friend, I loved his response because he said that he had not found God, that God had found him.
Yeah.
And so I appreciated that wording of it, and that I guess if I had to dig deeper into it, it was, he viewed the slaves in the slave trade how Heavenly Father does. He viewed them as individuals and human beings and peoples with families, and not just a worker.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. So the things that I had said were very similar, that Wilbur had felt called of God.
mm-hmm.
And then I felt like the doctrine that I found was that God made men equal. And that would be one of the doctrines, that he wanted to make the world a better place, so he was an advocator. And he learned, I love the saying that making the world better in one way, it becomes better in all ways.
Mm-hmm.
And then they talked about it's important to have a belief in your heart for what you do. And I think that was one of the big things about Wilbur, is he felt this calling of God, which made him be able to continue over difficult times. And then the last one I was thinking was that he just kept trying. Like he never gave up. Like he just kind of kept going after over and over of like failing. And I don't know, but like it was like what, 20 years?
Something like, it was a while. Yeah, something like that.
It was like
'Cause,
15 before.
yeah, it doesn't. I
And
wasn't
then,
really sure how far into the future it went after the 15 before.
well, they had the 2 years. So
Well, yeah, so at least the 2 years later, but I don't know
and
how
then she
far.
had another baby.
Yeah.
So I don't like.
Yeah, you're right.
Maybe it
Yeah,
was
it'd be close
5.
to 20
I
years.
don't know, but
Yeah.
yeah. So, but that's
Yeah.
a long time to keep pushing over and over. No, no, we don't. We won't do it. We won't do it. We won't do it. And then all of a
Mhm.
sudden, now I guess it's not all of a sudden. It took forever.
It did. And I love that his wife was always so supportive. Like, even before they were married. Like, he didn't know she was supportive in that prior 15 years,
Yeah,
but she was always supportive.
yeah. I didn't think about that. I had
Mhm.
mentioned like later on in one of our things that she was supportive later, but you're right. She was like from the very, very. She's like, oh yeah, I joined your cause
Mhm.
in animal rights. I joined your cause in I didn't take sugar. I was 14 at the time. All these
Yeah.
things.
Yeah. I thought I thought that was cool too.
Cool.
Okay. So I guess we can do the next question. Okay, so for the ecological theories, I hope I did this part correct. Okay. So I felt like he influenced his microsystem, which was like his family members, um, just by talking about it with them. Like, they knew that cause was in his heart. They knew that this is what he was always going after. And even when they would have their meetings, some of those people there were also family members, not just the other few advocates that you learn a little bit more about in the movie. And so he practiced what he preached to his family to help influence them.
Mm-hmm.
He influenced his exosystem when he had that boat moor up to the slavers' boat, the Madagascar. And so he was able to show the people on that boat, which I assumed were like neighbors and slash constituents, other people like that. So he was able to show them the conditions the slaves were subjected to and like have them experience the smell and death and disease. And I thought that was like a major influence right there to get people to sway their opinion. And then just by doing those things, that influence the mesosystem and macrosystem, because the mesosystem is interconnected between the micro and exo, those relationships. And then the macrosystem is where the political ideologies are of the society and community. So I felt like when those attitudes and opinions were swayed, it helped to change the ideologies of the macro system.
Yeah, I was like, the macro system, I was like, because it can be, it's more individual. So I kind of put, like, because it's all the things that influence you directly, right?
That's the micro system.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Macro, sorry. That's the macro system. And so that's my weird thing, because I keep going back and looking, and I'm a little bit confused about how everything goes on this thing. I don't know why. But because the micro system feels like, I don't know if it's just family or if it has peers and school and church, because those things are direct influences. But it's really like within your home, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Just within your home. Okay, so what I put, so I need to just change a couple. But in the micro system, I talked about his family and how his family was there supporting him and talking to his friends, because I felt like a lot of times his friends were very similar to his family because they hung out with him almost as much as his family did. They were like in his home and things like that.
Yes.
And then his wife's advocating with him. I thought that was part of the microsystem.
Yes.
And then feeding the poor and hungry in his own home, I think that was also part of the microsystem, because that was something that directly was in his house.
Oh, good one.
In the mesosystem, I put the advocating with the interconnection between the micro and the exo. I put like the advocating with his friends in his own home and preparing the flyers and getting petitions signed, and then holding dinners and stuff to make plans.
Mm-hmm.
I did pretty, because like the media, neighbors, and politics, right? So printing up the lectures and works and distributing them to like his neighbors, into the politics. They made badges, they gave speeches, they made petitions, they tried to pass bills. They were taking on those who were in the middle on trips, like you were saying, the ship, to tell the story and let them feel the sadness and smell it and all that kind of stuff. And then for the macro system, the culture of it, I put, am I doing this right? Does that sound right?
Mm-hmm.
The macro system, I put making strides to change the culture by visiting other countries. So they went to other countries sometimes. I don't think he personally did, but he had others go.
Yeah, his friends did, yeah.
And gathered information. But he kind of set that in place and sent them off to go. And then I put gathering information, but using the ideals of other countries to help build his own platform, like America and France and things, and Jamaica. And then he worked to make movements to have better, like he was working for relationships with America when it wasn't popular, when they were fighting America. Mm-hmm. He was trying to make the culture of England an entire better culture by passing bills and laws.
Ooh, I like that. That's good. Yeah. I like that. That was good.
We're using each other's ideas on this, right?
Yes. Yes. No, that was, I like that. Especially for the macro system, because I didn't think about it that way. So I appreciate that. Okay. So then the next question is, how did they do and share their research. So you already kind of touched on that with your macro system.
Yeah, I kind of, and maybe this was me, but I kind of felt some of them were overlapping.
Yes, I felt that way too.
Okay.
Yes. So yeah, like you had said, they some of his fellow advocates traveled on some of the slaver ships so they could learn and see firsthand what happened on the ships. They also traveled to Jamaica, where the sugar industry was, to document the conditions.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was, I need to look up the transcript so I can get his name correct. The old guy that went blind. He had his account transcribed and written down so people could see, not see, well, could read and hear about when he used to own a slaver ship and things that happened on his own ship.
Yeah.
And then the third person that I felt was important was the former slave himself, the one who took Wilberforce onto the ship initially at the beginning and showed him the chains and the conditions. And then he also wrote a book, and people were able to read about what his life was like to counteract the other members of parliament that tried to say, oh, they're okay with these conditions, they don't mind it at all. And his book was a big counter argument to that.
I thought that was hilarious when they're like, yeah, they all have a little garden and a plot of land, and they don't. We have no evidence that this is not okay with them. And it's like, what?
Yeah.
I thought that was the dumbest argument ever.
Yeah, I did too.
And then I liked how he said, if you keep scraping the bottom of the barrel, you're going to get splinters under your fingernails. I was like, yes, that was a good line.
That was a good line. I'm like, oh, I have to remember that one.
I was like, I use that one with my own kids. A little bit older. So I had said that they provided evidence that people didn't agree with slavery by gathering that petition, a huge old petition. And they showed people directly by taking them on the ship. And they found many people's personal experiences. So, like, I didn't specifically name him, the black guy or the preacher, John. I think his name is John.
Okay.
You have to quote me on that. I just remember the comments where he walks in. He goes, the beggar outside said I'm old enough to call you John. Or
there you go.
How many deaths were in the ships when they were crossing the ocean,
and
not just that it was. And then Wilbur himself was taken directly on the ship. So basically, I have pretty much the same things you do.
Okay.
Personally traveled and personal accounts and yeah, everything else I have is
awesome.
Exactly what you did. So we're very much on the same page there.
All right. Okay, so we have, how does the film portray the importance of working together as a group? What has the family advocacy group work taught you? Why do you think it is a good idea to discuss your thoughts with your peers each week in the HOA meetings? Okay.
Because my HOA group is awesome, that's why.
Right? Our group was amazing. I put that every week, like in the participation thing where she was like, why do you rate your group so high? I'm like, because our group's amazing. So, well, I think it showed that there's definitely more influence as a group, and they're able to accomplish more as a group. And people I think are also more willing to listen when you have a group versus just an individual. I think that was showed in the parliament meetings, because when he would stand up, they would kind of at the beginning instantly just shut him down. But then when he had more people in the gallery supporting him, they were more apt to listen to him. And they were able to, they spread out to cover more ground, by other people, multiple people traveling and whatnot. And then also being in a group from the movie, I felt that was beneficial because they were able to create unique ideas that maybe one of them wouldn't think of. Like they had the lawyer at the end
Yeah.
who had that idea, like they wouldn't have thought of that without him. And so I put that it put about bringing about different perspectives, and I tied that in with our HOA meetings because I felt like we all have unique experiences and unique perspectives,
Mm-hmm.
and we were able to bring that together with each other. And I think it's also because we're open to learn from one another, and I think they were also willing to do that in the movie too,
Yeah, that's a
as
good
well as
point.
us. um, yeah.
Okay, awesome. I thought, again, a lot of the same things you did. I'll just go through them.
Okay.
So I put no single person had enough power to create a change. Like one
Mhm.
person couldn't have made a difference in that situation. There was a lot of work that needed to be done. So they, like you said, spread out and did it all. Many of those on his side would not have been listened to, like because of who they were. Like some of the people up in the gallery, it wouldn't have mattered what they said because, like even the petition, like the people, why are you advocating for the people? Like it was like a surprise to him that he shouted at him. He's like, "This is what the people want." And he's like, "The people? Who cares about what the people want?" And so I thought that was interesting. And then Wilbur was in a unique position to lead because he was a persuasive person. He had power in there. And so he was able to, with him working, and I think that's one of the reasons why they brought him into the group in the first place, is because he had the, I'm trying to think of the word, I can't, but like, he was very suave in how he spoke. He was funny.
Mm-hmm.
He brought stories, he made people laugh, people understood what he was saying. So I think he was a very persuasive person to listen to, and so he benefited, like that was his power in the group. And like you said, the ideas came from so many different people that created the best solution. That like a lot of people came up with the ideas, and then Wilbur like made them happen or presented them or things like that.
Yeah.
Like we tied that into our advocacy groups because I'd say that we're able to share ideas with each other, and that we learn from each other. And hearing someone else stand for the same things that you do gives confidence and the feeling of ability to do things as you're not alone.
Mm-hmm.
You'll be able to hear your own thoughts and voice in a different way that can be very, like, a lot of times in our HOA groups, we had a lot of the same thoughts, but people voiced them and gave stories in a different way that made it a deeper meaning.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing I said that was being able to discuss with my group each week was amazing because we get the immediate feedback from each other. And we didn't have to wait for letters and things like that until like like when you text and the conversation is all of a sudden over and you're like, wait, I had something to say back there. And then you text it and it's like completely out of context, so it doesn't make sense.
Mm-hmm.
So I think one of the great things about groups is that they can discuss and talk about solutions, bouncing back and forth and right at the moment. That makes it more effective and better able to come up because your ideas are flowing and all that kind of stuff. So that's was my thoughts.
Yeah, I like that a lot too because I didn't think about being around other like-minded people, how that is a good benefit of the group too, to be able to get more confidence in your ideas and ideologies that you're supporting. And I like that.
Is it funny how sometimes like when you talk to people and you tell them your story and you're like I'm not weird, right? Like I'm not like the story this morning where I was telling you about how me and my husband don't talk the same way. Like I speak one language and he does another, and you're like, oh, we do the same thing, and I'm like, phew, I'm not the only one who thinks like that,
right?
It's the same kind of thing, I think.
It is. Yeah, it definitely. Especially like when we like I kind of wish we'd done our speeches earlier in the semester just because that was just like I felt they were so powerful and I'm like, yes, like I've been there. I get it. I know, like we were all just like, we love you so much. Like it just
Yeah.
really brought it together because yeah, we all could find something in that to relate to. Yeah.
And it just created that sense of togetherness. I don't know.
Yes. I agree.
Yeah.
Okay, this next one. Okay. I'm just gonna be honest. I'm gonna pull my convert card on this next question.
Okay.
So
You want me to go first?
sure. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So some of the things that I saw between Captain Moroni and Wilbur is that Wilbur faced great opposition like Captain Moroni. Like there was a huge battle that they were both trying to fight. They both had God on their side, so they were both trying to do what Heavenly Father wanted. That it wasn't easy for either of them to keep going. Like they both faced huge challenges, Captain Moroni did, and they were consistent. They weren't just like, here's a challenge, overcome it, okay, you're good. It was just like constantly one after another. And it was very much like a battlefield where they were fighting for lives. And I thought they were both fighting, they were both really young. That was also another thing. It's because they're like, yeah, they're both young. They were both fighting for the defense of what was right, and they were both very persuasive leaders and had a gift for leading. A Christian in profession. Oh, and so that's what I put as the things that were the same between Wilbur and Captain Moroni. And then I went on with what is a Christian and professional family advocate. How did Wilbur exemplify that? And I said a Christian professional advocate is someone who fights for families because he believes in the power and goodness of it. He fights often because he believes that it is what God would want, and that's the reason that he fights. And Wilbur showed this because he wanted to give his life to God, and then he discovered that he could fight for God and that what he was doing was right. He followed God in that way. And Wilbur fought because he believed that all men were created equal and had an equal right to be free. And then others were that often there, and then it talks about opposing voices. And I said that often there are many loud opposing voices that try to drown out the words that we speak. Like when he was talking, sometimes they'd all just like overpower him. And that Wilbur did other things besides just trying to speak, which I think also Captain Moroni did. Instead of just trying to lead the war, he made preparations to make sure he won the war. So he would, like Captain Moroni would build he would fortify the cities and build ditches and put spikes of wood all the way up around. And he did this to so many cities, and he brought food in. He brought everybody inside the walls, and he fortified and created and made sure that everything was going in place, so that when they came, it wasn't just my word against your word. Like he was prepared for it. And I think that Wilbur did the same thing. He petitioned, he talked to people individually, he wrote speeches, he had people wear badges, he persuaded others to oppose sugar, and he found a lot of small ways to fight besides just coming and clashing the loud and opposing voices. So that's what I wrote.
Okay. Well, thank you. That was very helpful. I put that they were both able to see through those who opposed them.
Yeah.
Like they understood their opposing argument, I guess, for lack of better words. So they also, I felt like they both had, like you said, they both wanted humans to be treated like humans. That we are all children of God, and that we should be fighting a united front. And that I felt like they both had. You can correct me if I'm wrong, because I just get nervous about questions like this.
Yeah.
I felt like they both had righteous anger.
Yes.
And that they used it appropriately.
That's a really good point. I love that. Yeah, they definitely did.
Yeah, and so I felt like they used it appropriately because they were able to take that righteous anger and then use it like in the ways you mentioned. Like he fortified Captain Moroni fortified his cities. He got his people ready. And Wilbur did like the same thing but with his own people. He got, you know, the petitions, the badges. He you know had his advocates going elsewhere to gain more information so that way he could just have more and more and more information. And then I totally have the same written for the what is a Christian and professional family advocate. They're doing what they believe Heavenly Father wants them to do, and they believe they will not believe, but like they know they have God on their side, so they know that what they're doing is right. And then I also felt like the how can you be effective and Christ-like. I felt like they both just I kept that one really simple. I just said they both practiced what they preached. Like they weren't hypocritical. They stood up for what they believed in and they followed through with it. They didn't back down.
Yeah. Awesome. I think you did a great. I think you made some really, really good points in there. That was awesome.
So, okay.
One of the things that was obvious that we're missing is I think they were both fighting against a form of slavery.
Oh.
Which I'm like, oh, maybe I should, like when we were talking about this, I was like, oh, that might be a good one to put in there. But like I think they were trying, like I'm like trying to think about going back and like double checking, but they were fighting for their freedom. So with Captain Moroni, because they wanted they called it the title of liberty, and they were fighting for the freedom. So they were both fighting a form of slavery. So I'm going to put that one in there too.
Yeah, I think I'll have to add that one too. That's a good one. Nice.
The obvious
one. Awesome. All right. We've already kind of talked about the next one, but about the Tynan, the Marcia Barlow speaking on persuasive, speaking and writing, and did Wilbur and others exemplify any of those ideas. I felt like initially at the beginning of the movie, he did not, because he just was easily just overtaken. I think the first time he really used that personal narrative and was just all over it and so persuasive was when he had the boat moored to the Madagascar. For me, that was just like amazing. And I thought he did such a wonderful job doing a persuasive, because I mean, they had to smell it. They had to see it, like there was no getting around it. And I thought that was extremely persuasive. And then he used it in the writing, the way he worded his bills also. He didn't just do a cut and dry bill, like this is what we should do. He even went that extra mile and put it into his bills to pass them as well. And then, of course, I think sharing all the personal narratives, of course, of the others who had traveled. Did that as well.
I agree with everything but one thing.
Okay.
We'll discuss it. We'll see. So I thought he was persuasive in the beginning, not about slavery, but just persuasive in general, because he could get up and when they were talking about the pox, like one of the first scenes, he was very persuasive because he was anyways, because they'd get up and try to refute him, and he's like, well, I'm going to leave the matter of the pox. Immediately cut him down. Like, and all of a sudden, this guy was the last. Because he was so persuasive in the beginning, that's why they drew him in the first place to help. Other than that, I think that I agree with everything that you said, that he was sincere. He spoke with a conviction that was born inside of himself and not just something that he was like, oh, that sounds like a good bill. I'll go try to pass it. But he like really believed in what he was doing.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And then he used stories to build empathy for his cause and to get the listeners' emotions and thoughts. And like getting on the ship, he like really drew them in.
Mm-hmm.
And he used humor to draw, and he knew how to draw attention. And he in his speeches and stuff. And he used other ways to draw attention, like he didn't just focus on just the House of Lords. He like, you know how they were talking about, like Marco Barlow was talking about flooding the media to get those things, and I think he did the same thing. He like flooded everywhere, like with books, bands of sugar that was made by slaves, petitions, like badges, all these other causes. He just flooded it everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So that, and then he went everywhere to get the evidence instead of just, so it wasn't just a very narrow, pointed view. It was like a very broad expanse. So all of those things, I think, were ways that he followed what he exemplified the Marcus ideas.
Okay, I'll ratify what I said then. I'll still say initially, but change another word after it. Initially, when he first took on the slave trade, I felt his first couple of speeches.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Like,
were not so persuasive. But no, the very first one they showed. So I guess I should say initially were on the slave trade ban. I say it that way.
I completely agree with that because you're right. The first moments of the slave trade and his fight for that, I completely agree that at first I think he was like overwhelmed and did not use good techniques. So no, I agree with you actually completely. Turns out we're on the same page after all.
Hey. Well, there you go.
Good point. I'm glad you pointed that out because I had forgotten about that.
Well, see, and I'm glad you pointed out the very, very beginning because that I wasn't thinking of that. So you're right. At the very beginning, he was very persuasive, and that is why I would agree that that's why they wanted him on their side to start their cause and to be like kind of the mouthpiece of their cause. So.
And this is why we discuss things in HOA meetings.
Exactly. All right. So the role of government. What did the role of government, policy, and religious freedom play in the fight of the slave trade? And did you see their political system being pro-family? Why or why not? Okay.
I love how they put like 6 questions into each one.
Right? So I feel like that the government, they initially, of course, they fought abolishing the slave trade for commerce reasons. They did not think of it in religious freedom reasons because they did not view the slaves as humans. And so, like I said, for commerce reasons, they felt it would be bad policy because then they did not want their rival, the French, to take over that business venture, and they were worried they could become more wealthy and whatnot. And then I don't see at the whole first part of until that bill was passed. I don't feel like it was pro-family.
Oh my gosh! No.
So, especially because of the one argument of the slaves saying they were okay with the treatment they were receiving, which no.
It baffles me.
Right? Like,
you're okay with it, and then we'll just let you be in that situation.
Right? So I don't feel like their political system was pro-family at all until the end, because then that person stood up and made that beautiful speech about Wilbur and how he can go to bed at night, saying he made this difference in the world and whatnot. And they were all, everybody was kind of like, yeah, this is a good thing. We are fighting for people and for all people. And so I feel like that kind of turned the tides, but for the whole movie, not so much. No.
Yes.
Oh.
So yeah, I agree that at the beginning they were not pro-family. That they really were concerned about like their wealth and how it was going to affect their personal interests, and that the government laws had laws that had to be followed, and until those laws were changed, the slave trade would not end. So that's one of the ways that they played a role in the fight for slave trade. But I think that religious freedom was beneficial because in some ways, not that they followed the religious area, but that the freedom itself was helpful because it allowed, first of all, Wilbur to find God in his own way. And then I think that was a really big part of how he became who he was, and that it allowed people to believe what they wanted, which was important because instead of the government just saying slaves are good or slaves are bad, people were able to have their own opinions, and that the policies held in place certain ideals. And so, like, as these policies were in place, everybody kind of felt, well, that's kind of the way life is, and it's that certain way of life. But until these ideals and these policies were changed, you couldn't change the way of people's lives until those new policies had been voted into place or whatever. So I think that's a big effect on the fight for anything, really. And in this instance, I see that the political system was anti-family. Most of the votes were, like I said, about wealth and the ability to gain more and the interests of those. And yet at the end of the movie, it was becoming more oriented because once they did the slavery thing, they fought for years for that. But after that, they went into education and people, just the common people, fighting for the common people they fought for. I started half of my sentence on this part, and it looks like I didn't finish that. But I wrote it somewhere else too. Oh, free education, freedom of religion, alcohol consumption, the workers' rights. So they started fighting for all those things afterwards, and so I started seeing the pro-family come into effect there. I'll have to highlight that. I don't forget to that sentence too.
Yes. And I agreed with that, and I also put that it was more. They were more concerned, like you said, with finances, but I put the financial well-being of the crown than it was the families because they felt like they didn't mention the king too often, but they did every now and then.
Yeah.
So.
Well, especially more towards the end when when they were talking about treason.
Yes.
When Friday talking about the king more.
Yes, for sure. All right. And then next one is about, do you feel that Wilbur used his time on Earth well, and how do you see him showing the elements of consecration that Elder Christofferson spoke of? I feel like he used his time well because he stayed with his cause and followed it through. And I felt like he did live most of the elements of consecration. I put he lived purity, work, service, and integrity. He was pure because he repented of his sins once he realized them and wanted to change his life and follow God. He worked hard to ensure that he did not repeat those mistakes and also worked hard for his cause and did not give up. He was very service-oriented by always having meals for the poor and taking in all of those animals and fighting for animal rights as well. And then of course I felt he had integrity because I've said it before, I'll say it again. He practiced what he preached. And I would say in my opinion, the only element of consecration he did not live well was respect for his physical body. He was often ill and he did not take care of himself. He pushed himself too hard for his cause, and he let his body suffer for it a lot. We're taught that it's not worth your health to fight for a cause.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that. Like I thought about it as he was so engrossed in it. Well, that's the same thing. He was so engrossed that he became sick and he finish step away. And I couldn't decide like if that was a good thing or a bad thing. So when you say it, I'm like, well, obviously.
Right.
But the other thing I wonder was he sick for a reason? Was he sick because he didn't finish the task and this was his father's way of training him? He needed to finish. That's kind of what I thought. But I don't know anymore. Because when he would see the slave. All right, sorry, I'm hearing a lot of feedback, so I hear myself. Do you hear feedback?
No.
Okay, good. So I saw when he looked into the mirror and he saw behind him the slave by the fireplace.
Mm-hmm.
I understood that as being not done yet. You still have things to accomplish. But I'm not sure Heavenly Father made us sick because we haven't accomplished things. But it's like almost like guilt or conscience, like eating at him.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm lost on that one.
Well, I put that because his family was super concerned. Mm-hmm. So that's why I put, because the reason he was even telling that story is because his family took him out of London because they were so worried about him.
No, and I completely agree with you.
Yeah.
Like I hadn't thought about it that way, but after you say it, I'm like, oh yeah, that's a really good point. So I think you're more right than I am. I'm following you. I'm persuaded. See, what else did I say? I said he spent several years fighting for the rights of slaves. And he was fighting for the slaves and feeding the homeless and the charity. Oh, sorry. Even before he was fighting for the slaves, he was the homeless and the charity and helping charities. And I think this was a concentration of his life even before he found God, which told him how good the kind of person he is. And then once he learned about slavery, he really just put everything into the point that he was completely slavery. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, I pretty much had the same.
Very good. Well, yay. Okay. And then any profound thoughts or personal insights from the movie that are related to child and family advocacy? I guess mine was, I feel like it's not very profound, but whatever. Like, I mean, of course it is persistence. You know, we need to, it's not going to happen overnight. Mm-hmm. And the political process is a bureaucratic nightmare, and you have to be prepared for that. But I also, it's kind of related back to the previous question. What I took from it is that, you know, while we need to be engaged in a cause and fight for what's right, we also need to take care of our families first. And I'm not saying he didn't, because I don't feel like he neglected his family.
But he did his health.
Right. He did his health, but not his family, because it showed him playing with his son and whatnot. But that is just what it made me think of. I don't think the movie portrayed that, but that's just what it made me think of, is to remember to fight for your own family first, and then you can help others. Take care of your family first, and then you can move on to help others. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
Some of the things I got from the movie was the one small thing after another. And in the beginning, they talked about changing the world, and how one small thing changing the world makes the whole place better. And I thought that was really interesting thought, because sometimes I feel like my small things don't do anything. But I like the thought that the one small thing makes one thing better in the world makes the whole world better. The next thought was, after they fought for the dismissal of the slave trade, they then started with other subjects. They didn't just stop once they achieved their goal. They kept going, and they found, I think, that once they created that opening, they were able to make a lot of progress. And so, like in our lives, if we come into the position where we create this opening and people listen to us, I think all of a sudden we need to keep going and fighting for other things because we are being listened to, and using those moments that we are being listened to make a difference. My next thought was that a large group of people be stronger. We saw a lot of evidence. I know that we kind of already discussed that. But sometimes, like those moments, I'm like, hey, I know this, but now I'm like, oh, I really understand it in a better way. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
I love how they had just different people from so many different places, and I think the lawyer wasn't really caught attention at the attention. He was like, hey guys, do it this way. So, and then, like you said, the change is slow, and it takes a long time. We can't give up after the first little bit. And then my last thought is getting people to be on board and signing a petition cannot make all the changes that we need. I think petitions are great. I don't think personally that they do a lot. And I think that while that can be one thing in your one feather in your cap, one paper in your pocket, it's not a. And having people say, yes, I agree, is not the same as people getting out and doing something about it. Because people can sign a paper all day, but that won't make a difference if that's all they do.
Mm-hmm. I completely agree with that, for sure. I really liked what you said about the, one small difference can make the world a better place. I really like that because I think that it's so true. So.
Well, I didn't say it.
Well, thanks for sharing that thought. Okay. So what was your understanding of the doctrine of the family at the beginning of the semester, and how has it changed? I'll admit that I just was kind of, the family doctrines is the same as like the family proclamation, yay, and that's kind of the end of it. It was a very basic, no level of depth understanding. And now, I know that especially the family proclamation, they're not just words, they're a call to action. Mm-hmm. And it's a call to action to help preserve our families. And we just, and it just really made me realize how much I need to fight for and teach my own family, so that, because the best way for them to learn the doctrine of the family is to live the doctrine of the family.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's when I had a really hard time with it, because I was like, God, we've been studying this for, like, you're almost ready to graduate,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I'm almost ready to graduate in 2 semesters. So what year left? But perhaps growing up in the church, we already had a strong belief of the family. And so I guess really this is why it was so hard for me. I was like trying to think, because I know I had to put something down, but I can't just put, like, I feel kind of the same that I did before, because that's not going to give me a very good grade. But it's true. Here I am on video, so
Well, no, I think, okay, I think what you're trying to say is it's nothing new. It's nothing that you didn't already know, but like it's kind of lit more of a fire in you, though, to make sure others know about it.
So, and I guess that's the one thing. You're exactly right. Had a really strong opinion about the family, but I didn't really think about going out and helping other families. I mean, I did because eventually I wanted to do that, but not in the way that I understand it now. So I guess I understand the outside culture of the family and the government, the community, the society in a lot better way than I did before. So I guess that's a good thing, right?
Yeah, that's pretty big, I think.
What we're trying to do is, I guess, advocate for the family, and I see it. So that is what I'm trying to say. That's what I wrote right down because it was blank before. I was like, oh. So thanks for helping me get my thoughts in line and putting that down.
Yeah. That's why this group's amazing.
Two reasons right there.
All right. Okay, so then our last one is to picture our spouse and children and then write down some thoughts about how they will benefit from me or us, I guess I should say, taking this class. Well, I will try not to turn into a bawling mess because I did while I was typing it. So I just really, I wish I would have had that thought from the beginning of the movie, because now I will need to add that because it perfectly ties in with what I said about how one small change really can make a difference. And I just really hope that by living the life that I'm personally am living, that it can benefit my husband and my children, and that they can see just how wonderful the gospel is, and how wonderful the doctrine of the family really is. Because I know he believes deep down most of what the doctrine of the family is. He just doesn't want to completely admit it yet. And so this class really gave me hope for my family, that I know I can be an influence and a force of good for my family by having taken this class, and be a good influence to them. Because I can live the doctrine of the family, and I can teach that to them, and they can benefit from just that small, simple of a thing, that it can just have such a huge ripple effect that I really wasn't even aware of until taking this class. And so I want them to be able to see that happiness in family life is possible, even if we don't always agree with everything that the other person is doing. And I want to be able to teach them about love and forgiveness, and just how to live a really great and happy life, even if they never even choose to accept the gospel. I know that I've done what I can while on this earth for them. So, yeah.
Why didn't you go last? Mine's not nearly that good. Seriously. That was really awesome. I love what you just said, because I agree. I think that especially in this situation where you're just amazing to fight for that and to be such an example to family. So, okay, mine's not as big, but I said that I'm a better person because I better understand the dangers of the family because of this class. The dangers to the family because of this class. And then I can be a mother because I can be a better mother because I can help protect my family against the dangers and the threats that I have found. I can also teach my children to advocate for family in their home, in our home, in their schools, in their friends, so that they can better understand and stick up for the family. And as they grow older, that they have same beliefs, and that I can help make a better world, at least starting in our own community, first of all, in our home. But then, by fighting for the family in our home and then community neighborhoods, and if possible, to help with laws and policy in our schools, communities, and in our country to make it better for not just my family, but for everyone. So.
No, that was good. I like that. Like that you said you want to teach them about the threats to the family, because there's a lot out there. So
I think it's one of the biggest things that we face nowadays is threats to the family, because I was surprised a little while ago we took we watched the movie Demographic Winter. I think it was one of the science classes, but I'm not sure. But it talked about how important family is, not from a religious standpoint, but from a political and a governance. I was surprised to see it from another point of view and have it completely agree with what you're saying.
Yeah. I've seen that was a good one. I remember. Can't remember what class that was for, but yeah, I remember. That was a big kind of, I guess. I don't want to say that like I never was against anything that we've learned, but that was just a big like wake up call for me, I guess, was that one. That there really is like some major threats going on. So.
And it's not just religious.
Right. Exactly.
And I think those moments of, oh, this religion helps me be a better citizen. And it helps me do a lot of things I should be doing anyways, but just because it's religion. I do it because I believe in it because of religious purposes, but I'm all ironically stupid, surprised that how much it affects in society. And I don't know why I think that, because it's obviously Heavenly Father has put in a plan to make the world the best it can be. And He gave that to us. So I should stop preaching right now. But that's my thoughts.
No, I like your thoughts. So.
Stacy, I'm really sad that this is our last one.
I know, I'm sad too.
You're all the back.
You're amazing. You taught me so much.
You're amazing. I've learned a lot from not only you, this group, just